The information I'm about to share in this video is probably going to come off as somewhat controversial. The topic of salt and sodium, and is salt bad for you? See, everyone seems to think that salt and sodium is a major cause of heart disease, and when you consume too much salt or sodium, it'll kill you, and yada yada yada. Well, I've spoken many times before about how doctors tend to speak in simplistic terms, and they tend to dumb down and water down a lot of the science and a lot of nutritional information, and because of this, they make assumptions that simply aren't true or are simply not as simple as doctors seem to make them out to be. Things aren't always black and white, and that's definitely true when it comes to sodium. Right off the bat, I'm going to tell you right now, I suffered from severe anxiety and heart palpitations, shortness of breath, also known as, air hunger or starvation of air. Basically, I would breathe, and whenever I would, try to breathe or whatever, I couldn't get a full breath of air, it felt like. Clearly, that's not a problem now. I can take very deep, long, fulfilling breaths of air, and I feel like a lot of that has to do with my intake of sodium. I noticed over time that, for one, of course, I tend to be a heavy sweater, and I exercise a lot, and all my life I would always sweat more than most people, and I always wondered what that, why was I sweating so much? Well, there could be many causes for excessive sweating. One of which could be a electrolyte imbalance. If you don't have enough sodium or enough potassium, then chances are you're having an electrolyte imbalance and you could be sweating excessively. When I started to consume more sodium in my diet, I started to take a teaspoon of sodium a day, and then I also heavily salt my meals, and I put maybe a fourth to a half a teaspoon of Himalayan Pink Salt in my gallon of water. So per gallon I take in a half a teaspoon. And since I started to raise my sodium intake, I've been able to breathe perfectly, and this has worked wonders on my stress level. It's helped me sleep at night and helped to calm down my nervous system, and has helped my brain and my body work so much better. Now, of course, if you cannot breathe properly, contrary to what a lot of people might try to tell you to make you feel good, you gotta understand when your respiratory system is compromised, when you're not breathing full, your heart is going to be very stressed. It will put a lot of stress in your heart. So if consuming more salt makes it easier for me to breathe, and all of a sudden fixes my hyperventilation syndrome, or my air hunger, or whatever you want to call it, if it fixes this breathing problem to where now I can breathe better, it's taking the stress off my heart, and it's coming from the salt. So you could say that salt is good for the heart, because now I can breathe better, and now my heart's not as stressed. There's a lot of scientific evidence that completely contradicts the notion that salt is bad for the heart. There's studies and a huge body of evidence showing that salt actually lowers blood pressure and can actually improve heart function, cardiovascular function. And then, of course, to add an even deeper dimension to this whole subject is the fact that, once again, it's not all black and white. It's not salt that's bad for you, but an imbalance of salt to potassium. You have to have all of your electrolytes, calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. You have to have your electrolytes in balance. And if they're not in proper ratios to one another, you'll have problems. Sodium is an antagonist to potassium and vice versa. If you consume too much salt, you need 4 times more potassium in order for your electrolytes to be balanced, according to the scientific data. Okay, if we're talking numbers, but everybody's biology is going to be a little bit different. Fuck. A fly just like flew on me, all randomly and shit. I don't even know if that was a fly. That was the weirdest bug on the planet. Anyway, totally was not expecting that. What the fuck is that? Weird bug. Okay. Anyway. So, eat more salt. As a rule of thumb, a half a teaspoon per gallon of water that you drink. I recommend anyone who's just starting this to try to consume at least one teaspoon of unprocessed Himalayan rock salt. Okay, that's a pink salt full of trace minerals. Very, very small amounts of trace minerals. Not much to make a significant difference compared to, multivitamins or something, but it makes a difference, okay, in the cells of your body. When it comes to your cellular biology, the small amounts of minerals found in Himalayan salt makes a big difference. So just try as an experiment to take about a half a teaspoon of Himalayan pink salt in the morning and take it with a glass of water, dissolve in some water, and then just consume more water throughout the day. And see if you feel any different. Chances are you'll feel a lot better. And it will help to regulate your thirst as well. Now, of course, if you're eating a bunch of sodium in processed foods and fast food and frozen dinners and potato chips and all that, and sodas, then obviously that's a different type of sodium, and it's not going to be good for you. That's not the same thing as if you were to take a teaspoon of Himalayan pink salt. And let's also keep in mind that there's so many different compounds and derivatives of sodium. There's sodium benzoate, sodium nitrate, sodium phosphate, okay? And doctors fail to realize or fail to mention, that's the third layer. That once again, it's not all black and white. There's different forms of sodium that contribute to your overall sodium intake. And if you're consuming sodium, monosodium glutamate, MSG, or sodium nitrate, sodium phosphate, any of these artificial sodium compounds, or not even necessarily all artificial, but these types of sodium compounds can be very damaging to the body, and they give sodium a bad name and a bad reputation. And I highly recommend people to stay away from sodium phosphate, sodium nitrate, and all these other sodium derivatives, especially monosodium glutamate or MSG. Stick to natural whole foods and add this Himalayan pink salt. Much, much different than all the other sodium compounds, and sodium does not necessarily kill you. That's completely a generalized statement that is not factual. Okay, it's not a fact. It's a dumbed down, watered down, not even a half truth, okay? Try it for yourself though and see if you get the same results as I do. And just as a side note, for anyone who's experiencing hyperventilation syndrome or shortness of breath, another thing you can try to do if the sodium doesn't work is try to take in vitamin E with mixed trifecurols, or however you say it. But mixed vitamin E, mixed tropiols, vitamin E, and then also take selenium and vitamin D together with butter or some kind of fat, or just a fatty meal in general, because it's best absorbed and digested with fats. So vitamin E, selenium, and vitamin D. Okay? Alright, so until next time, this is Wolfgang, and I am rocking the bald head.